Hey guys, it's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL, and I wasn't expecting to make this video tonight. I've been fiddling around on iPad apps to refamiliarize myself with all these powerful apps that painfully are lacking Apple Pencil Hover, waiting for Apple Pencil Hover to be released. In fact, I was working on I've been reviewing them to produce a tier list, so subscribe for that. I purchased this M2 iPad Pro about half a week ago, specifically for the Apple Pencil Hover feature, a feature that 99% of tech YouTubers out there have zero use for. But for somebody specifically who does my type of art, being digital painting, not to be confused with sketching, because those are two different things, could not work on an iPad nearly as efficiently as I could work, for instance, on an Intuos or on a Cintiq, because I need both a location, a placement, and a size preview where my pen is when I'm painting, because I'm constantly changing brush sizes when I'm painting. So if I'm just doing line art, that's not a big deal. But when you're painting, this is something that completely knocks you off. It completely knocks you off your flow. So I was testing out different apps and just getting to know different brush engines and kind of gauging which ones are my favorite and customizing brushes and everything like that. And then I switched over to Art Studio Pro, and lo and behold, I can see my cursor. And then I played with the brush size and I went, that looks like they've implemented Apple Pencil Hover. And this is awesome because Art Studio Pro ranks as one of my top favorite painting apps for the iPad. I would argue that it's probably the best and most stable professional Photoshop replacement for an iPad. I absolutely love it. The brush engine's fantastic. Importing Photoshop brushes is fantastic. The brush engine is fantastic. The functionality is fantastic. It's a great app. And now they have Apple Pencil Hover. So you're literally getting a first professional look at Apple Pencil Hover in action that's not in Apple Notes, which is pretty much a piss poor example of it, right? Because it's not a professional painting app. So I'm going to start you off because I want you to see why this matters, particularly for digital painting. I'm in one of my personal favorite painting apps, which is Infinite Painter. I love the brush engine. I think the tools, the features, the way they've implemented shortcut buttons, the design, the ease of use, the practicality of the app is just phenomenal. I reviewed this years ago as probably my favorite app, and it's way up there still. That said, they haven't yet implemented Apple Pencil Hover. That's an iPad thing, right? They're still trying to catch up with this kind of stuff. But I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to start hovering it over the screen, and you're going to see immediately why, despite having great brushes, it's incredibly difficult to get any kind of accuracy. So I'm hovering my pen. You can't see it, obviously, because I haven't actually touched down. And when I do, because we're not actually seeing a brush preview, you can't tell what mark I'm going to make until I touch down and make my mark. So you can see it's not until that pen actually touches down that you can actually see what I'm painting. So what the problem with that is, you're always trying to best guess. You're always trying to best guess. Despite the fact that it's got a beautiful, beautiful brush engine. I would argue a brush engine that's probably better than Photoshop's, and Photoshop's is damn solid, right? The second issue is, when I'm scaling my brush, if I'm painting down here, doing something like this, and then I need to scale it, the brush preview is up here, right? So what does that mean? Well, I can't see the size of my brush or the exact edges of it, the exact placement, the size of it. So what I have to do is scan my eyes over to that little circle up on the top. And even though you have a shortcut, you can slide with 3 fingers if you want to scale it. That's very, very practical. I have to move my eyes away from my drawing, best guess the size of it, move my eyes back to where my hand was, and then try my best to line it up. But I have no way of lining it up unless I can actually see my brush tip. Now, if you're working in Procreate or different things like that, you can get a brush preview when you're very, very close to it, but it's not the same thing. I'm constantly moving my eyes away from my cursor to try to gauge the size. I would say in terms of accuracy and productivity, it's a good 30 to 40% reduction, so much so that I just got frustrated. If I had a choice, I just wouldn't paint on the iPad, which is a heartbreaker because this is such a powerful, awesome, light, versatile device. It's a real powerhouse of a device, but what are you going to do? So getting things to line up and perform the way you want them to it's a shot in the dark half of the time. Albeit, I still love this app. I'd say this is probably the app that I'm dying to see implement Apple Pencil Hover, and by the looks of it, it's probably going to be soon. So let's switch over to Art Studio Pro. And what really took me by surprise is with Art Studio Pro, it was a quiet update. I didn't get any updates. I didn't see anything in the App Store. I just came into the app and all of a sudden I went, oh, there's my cursor. And I left a mark and I went, oh, there you go. Now, the next test was, is it just showing me that brush preview? Because when I tested it out in Apple Notes just to see how it worked, you could see your cursor, but it wasn't actually giving you an accurate size representation. You'd get a little cursor, but when you left the mark was this big. But now, I'm actually getting a direct preview of it exactly where my pen is. So now when I want to leave a mark, I can be dead accurate with the placement of that mark. Okay? Which is, it's everything when it comes to my kind of work. It means everything to me. This is the missing feature of it. Okay? So I can scale it, in fact, to the point where this preview up on the top left is redundant. It's actually more of a distraction. It keeps pulling myself away. So chances are, if you have Apple Pencil Hover, you're probably going to be disabling that because it's just redundant. There's no point in having both at the same time. But there it is. See? So for instance, here's something you wouldn't be able to do without Apple Pencil Hover. I'm going to sample this color over here, and I'm going to try to leave a mark, an edge right on the inside, and I need that placement to be precise. Now I can do that. I can sample this. I can get right up on that edge and leave a mark exactly where I want that edge to be. You can see when it comes to rendering and blending, this is kind of mandatory. And this being a missed feature, you can see where this really, really impacts your ability to be precise. Or if I want to do some design brushstrokes and add some nice designs to this, I can see exactly where everything is located before I leave that mark, right? If I come in here and I want to add little tentacles like this, I know exactly where that mark and the size of that mark, where I am. And let me see, have they actually implemented? No, they haven't. I remember seeing the preview, I think it was in Procreate, where you can actually use 2 fingers to scale. I think that would be really nice to have. I really like that. In fact, there's a couple of apps I'm going to be previewing. I realized that there was another app apart from Borodante's Craft Pro that actually had a thumb button there. So that's actually a really nice feature. That way you can just scale it with your finger on the side without having to look for somewhere to scale it. That's actually something that'll help a lot. But you can see that I've really got pinpoint accuracy on where I leave these marks. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 means a perfect Photoshop experience. And a 1 being, why did you even bother making an app? Working in Art Studio Pro with Apple Pencil Hover, using the hard round brush, which is kind of the staple brush to use, I rank this currently at a 9 on 10. This is as close to a Photoshop experience you're going to get on an iPad. It is spectacular. The brush engine is probably one of the best brush engines. I'd say as far as brush engines are concerned, Infinite Painter and Art Studio Pro rank way up on top of that list. There's a couple of features, if you're listening, that would be really, really cool for Art Studio Pro. One being, and they might have actually done it, I just haven't figured out how to do it, how to get your color picker to be always active. Like you can see if I flip back over to this, you can actually take this color picker and move it just by pinching it with 2 fingers in Infinite Painter. A couple of other apps allow you to do this as well. This is really important because when I just want to change colors on the fly, I can do it like this instead of having to open and close my menu all the time. That would be really cool. The other thing too is when you're actually using bracket keys, the same way you would in Photoshop, the open and close bracket keys for scaling brushes, which is my preferred way of doing it. I'm just working directly on the iPad like this. I find that the increments are a little bit too dramatic, and I like to have a little bit more granular, smaller increments of brush sizes, so I can really work exclusively with the bracket keys for real speed and stuff like that. Being able to use keyboard shortcuts really do make a difference. The other thing too is, I think because they just kind of released this quickly and on the fly, there's a couple of keyboard shortcuts that were a little bit finicky and not responsive. I had to kind of close and reopen the app because this is normally a very stable app. Art Studio Pro is a very, very stable app. I found that the bracket keys weren't working. And then I would find that sometimes if you'd hold down the command key to get your keyboard shortcuts, a little tip for anybody working on an iPad, if you hold down the command key for a couple of seconds, it'll show you all the keyboard shortcuts for an app. That wouldn't pop up. The color picker would be a little bit finicky. Another little quick tip too is if you want to use your finger as the color picker, which is usually the case, you just use your finger and you just tap the screen for color picker. I'm not a big fan of the fact that the cursor is not it's not sampling where my finger is, because that requires me to press and slide. I prefer, if you go into Infinite Painters, it samples where your finger touches and you just get that ring around your finger so you can actually preview the color like that. I think that's a little easier because I want to be able to pick a color in a precise location instead of slide. That would really be cool if they did that with Art Studio Pro. But apart from that, wow. So legitimately, if you're a digital painter who depends on this feature and who works on Cintiqs or Intuoses or XP pens or any of these different devices and really depend on that feature for your work, then you have my full endorsement of Apple Pencil Hover. This is a first look at it, and it completely works the way I want it to. Now I feel completely comfortable taking this, going to a cafe, and just working exclusively on my iPad and working on a painting. I know I can do that now, and I'm so excited. For all of you tech YouTubers who have no use for the iPad, I totally get you. It makes perfectly sense why this would be a meaningless feature to you. But for somebody like me, this to me means Apple are crushing the pen display game, and this makes me very excited moving forward on pen displays from Apple. But like I said, that's wishful thinking. While we're on the topic here, just as a little side note, since I still got your attention, I actually am testing out a couple of other little iPad products, a couple of screen protectors and grips and stuff like that. Non-sponsored, but if you want some feedback on this kind of stuff, pen.tips. pen.tips is known. I've purchased a lot of their rubberized pen nibs. I don't know if there's as far as their pen nibs are concerned, they're excellent. They give you that kind of rubberized resistance feel, the same way you get from a screen protector. Albeit, I've been testing it out on the M2. Maybe it just needs a bit of an update, but I've been noticing that the pen.tips do create a little bit of wobble when you're trying to do that diagonal line thing. Yeah, and I've tried it with and without. It kind of doesn't track the pen properly. Albeit, that's just the pen tip itself. But the grips are the best grips I've ever used. They're the perfect thickness, and they've got a nice kind of pencil hole to it, little kind of they kind of have grooves in it to help your fingers grip on it a little bit better. They slide on and off very easily, but they don't slide off. Their glove is very good quality with the double stitching, and it's double fingered for a lot of you people who like the double fingers. So pen.tips, very highly recommend. I've loved their products for years. I also tested out a couple of screen protectors because I'm personally not a fan of working directly on the screen. I find the glass on plastic is kind of a feeling. I tested out this brand, Belmont, which is a very recommended, very liked brand, but this one specifically is the detachable one. It magnetizes. I don't recommend this. It's way too thick, really way too thick. And the problem with the magnets, it really ruined the image. But the magnets themselves block your ability to swipe from the bottom of the screen. But the advantage of this, the reason I tested it is because I like the idea that it's detachable. So you're not committing to a long-term screen protector. That said, I purchased the Paperlike. And then after I purchased it, I went, oh crap, not that. Because I remembered my impression of Paperlike the first time I got it was not great. I found it was a bit overpriced, and I found they scratched up really easily. I didn't like the way it affected I found the texture a bit too aggressive. It really wore out my nibs. It showed scratches and stuff like that all over it. I didn't feel it was worth the price. But I think there's been a silent update with Paperlike as well. Again, not sponsored. None of this is sponsored. But I really like this Paperlike now. It's a very gentle and it's got a resistance. It feels a lot like working on a pen display, like a Cintiq. It's got that Cintiq resistance with the ever so slightest texture. It's not this aggressive texture. So it's very, very gentle, a little bit rubberized, but really, really nice quality. And I've been testing out and I see 0 scratches on this surface. So far, I'm really liking the new Paperlike. I really think they're really good. And I never would have recommended a Paperlike in the past. I really wasn't a big fan, but now I am. That said, the competitor to the Paperlike is the Belmond, but I never tested out the Belmond, the one that sticks directly to the screen. So if any of you have tested out that version of it, you can let me know in the comments below. Oh, another product I'm testing out here is this stand by Parblo. And it's really, really nice. It's not too expensive, but it's a little bit more expensive than the cheapos. But the nice thing about this, what's really cool, the reason I wanted to get it is it's got many little increments. And it's plastic, but it's a good quality, robust plastic. It's nice and stable. It's maybe about 1.5 centimeters wider on the sides, but than the actual iPad itself. But it's really, really nice and stable, nice and grippy, nice and secure. You can really draw with confidence on it and not worry about it sliding across your table or anything like that. So there's a couple of quick promos for all of you guys who are producing products for the iPad. But guys, Apple Pencil Hover, Art Studio Pro so far is A+++. It is an absolute game changer, and I'm so excited that it worked out this way. I was really worried it wasn't. So if you're on the fence, jump off of it. It's time to commit. All right? Happy shopping. Take care.